folks, John Cordisco here. Another game from the Isle of Man International Chess Tournament 2016. One of the most beautiful places in the world. I like this because there's a lot of world-class players. 3 of the top 10 in the world are there. Also this game between Yifan, women's world champion, and James Jackson. I'm not familiar with him, but this is the neat part about open tournaments. These world-class players aren't in the usual round robins, and he sees some really, really creative chess. Granted, there's a lot of ratings difference between them, but I think the games are a lot more entertaining. Let's get to it. Yifan is white. Jackson is black. It's going to be a close reload pay. Let's go through it. Go through the opening a little bit here. Pretty much standard stuff. D6, C3, castles, H3. Because this, I'll tell you what, this pin right here will be a huge pain in the behind. A lot of moves here from here. A lot of moves. Knight A5 has been played. H6, rook E8. Decided to go the knight back. Interesting. He's just going to probably go move his C pawn. Maybe get his knight on D7. Look like maybe he can do this. Or here, this knight, this bishop can come over. Interesting layout. D4. She goes right for the center first thing. Moves the knight. The other knight comes out. The bishop B7, just like we thought. It's basically an even game. I've got the computer on off screen. I think he's done well. There's a 340 odd rating point difference between Jackson is black and Yifan is white. So I think he's doing fine. Bishop C2. But you're going to see what happens. A hell of an attack comes on black's king. Rook E8. Interesting move here. Interesting move. Now the top 3 moves on the computer are all basically the same in score. Very tiny difference. And I like the move a lot. And it's knight F1. Now this doesn't look like a very good move, but it is for black. It goes bishop F8, and that does a lot of things. It helps with the king, of course. And it also gets the rook on the E file. Some work here. Knight goes to G3. G6. He's going to stop that knight from getting in. A4. Goes C5 anyway. Gonna open up a little bit. D5. She decides to close it on that side of the board. C4. Bishop comes up. There's not really much going on right now. I think black's holding pretty well. His bishop on B7 is kind of biting on granite, but that's not going to be forever. Knight C5, really good spot for that knight. Queen D2. And bishop E7. And I think black is absolutely fine. Not a problem at all. I think James Jackson has done very well up to this point. We're on move 18. Bishop H6. Interesting move there. Computer also like rook to A3, which I found very interesting. And he decides to move his knight back. Knight to H2. What to do? What to do? Pawn takes. And she has to do the move here now. Bishop takes A4, I think is way preferable. But it'll certainly put that rook out of play for a while. She decides to go rook to A2. And the computer didn't like that at all. Didn't like it at all. A5. Rook F1. I'll be honest with you, it's a tiny advantage on the computer for black, and I agree. I think black's done very well up to this point, considering the rating difference. What you're going to see as we go on that rating difference is going to really, really show through. Black decides, that bishop's a pain in my behind. So he's going to get that bishop off of b7 and get him back into play. As you can see, the bishop now, when this knight moves, is going to have a nice scope. Very casually. Now, queen e2 I looked at. Bishop e3. But king h1. Now, that's a move I'm not really sure why she did it. I'm sure she had her reasons. I've been sitting here trying to figure it out. I really can't tell, to be honest with you. Rook b8. And that basically freezes this rook now. Bishop b3. She moves the bishop finally. I think knight g4 was worth looking at. Then after that, knight b6. But after bishop e3, queen e c7. And black's doing okay. Not great, but okay. Knight g5. Now, computer likes h5, believe it or not. I mean, that's really throwing caution to the wind. Because you got to remember now, the queen on c7 can't come back for a long time for the defense of the king. Knight b6. She goes h6 check. King g7. And here's where she goes for it. f4. He's holding his own against the women's world champion. I give the kid credit. Now, I didn't like the next move, and he took a lot of time on this. I'm sure she took a lot of time on the f4 move. Rook to f8 is the computer's choice, and I kind of agree. Or maybe even f6 is kind of ugly, it blocks your bishop, but I think it's fine. He decides to take the knight. Now, pawn takes, discovered check. King goes back to g7. Queen f2. What to do? Basically, only move bishop f8. And I think black can hang on. I think black can actually hang on. e6. Probably not the best move. The computer liked e takes at d6. And after bishop takes pawn, knight to h5 check. But I decided to go this way. Well, I'll tell you, human-wise, that's a very human move because you're looking at bishop here, coming down, queen here, pawn takes. Big mistake. Big mistake. Now, you got to remember now, white has sacrificed a piece. And this is what happens sometimes in a game. You get materialistic, you get greedy. Or your opponent will sacrifice a pawn or two to get an attack going. It's good to know when you have to give it back. And I think black would have been fine if he played knight takes e6. She has to take back, and then rook takes. And I think black would have survived. But what we decided to do was pawn takes. And it's mate in 6, guaranteed. Knight checks. Pawn takes. Bishop checks. If he goes king to h8, queen takes f8, rook takes f8 check. If it goes to g8, basically the same scenario. So he decides, let her mate me, I'm going to get mated anyway. King takes, and then queen mates, and that's a pretty mate. It really is. That's a nice mate. So tough break for the kid. I think he could have held on, but he just took the wrong way, and that happens sometimes. These games hang on one single move sometimes. And I've always said this for years. Chess is the greatest game in the world, but it also can be the cruelest game as well. So anyway, folks, that's an exciting game from round 1 of the Isle of Man International Chess Tournament. And one of the most beautiful places in the world in the Isle of Man. Look for other games coming up. If you do want to see all the commentary, go to livestream.com, and also chess.com is one of the sponsors, is also showing the video commentary live, or you can see the recording of the commentary, say from the day before, or you can't make it for a live broadcast. And as I always say, folks, at the end of my videos, if you think chess is just a game, you're not playing it right. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.